Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Hear a little feedback. Here we go. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to think about it. Um, so pop in, hop on in, join this conversation. It's going to be a good one tonight. We have our special guest tonight is Miss Stacey Knoell. She's the executive director of the Kansas African Affairs Commission in the state of Kansas, of course. And so, again, I want to just thank everybody for tuning in. If you're with us live, I thank you for your time right now. And if you catch the broadcast later, I still want to thank you for your time because you could be anywhere. You're with us. So again, Stacey, thank you for joining Think About It tonight. And so I'm going to pass the mic to you. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and give us just a little bit of background.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss LaWanda, for having me on tonight. I really appreciate it. In fact, when I first got this job last June, you legitimately were one of the first people I talked to. Like we have an email exchange that took
Yes.
place. My first day was June 1st. I swear it's like June 3rd. We were
Right.
already emailing each other. So
Right.
you were one of the first people that I came in contact with. So my name is Stacey Knoell. I know it looks like Knoll.
Oh, no.
I'm
Okay.
married in. I would say like the K is silent, and then like the O is
Oh,
silent, and then like one of the L's is silent. And so it's just like every other letter.
right.
My
Now.
maiden name was Robinson, which much more straightforward. So I am the executive director of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission, and I did get the job June 1st was my first official day. So it's coming up here on a year and a couple months. So um, that's it. And the what landed me here was in 2020. I had run for the Kansas State Senate
Mm-hmm.
in District 9, which was because the lines are getting ready to change, but District 9 was a good chunk of Olathe and into DeSoto and Gardner, and then out to the Douglas County line. District 9 was the largest state Senate district contained within Johnson County, land wise. It's a very big plot of land. So I ran for the Kansas State Senate in 2020 and did not win, but we ran a very hard race. We, by any metric, we outperformed. The last time that seat had been contested by a Democrat in 2016, the Democrat had lost by 20 percentage points, and we closed that gap to 4. So we lost 52-48, and just 1,900 votes, right, out of some 43,000 votes that were cast. Closed that gap down to 1,900 votes. The governor, that's what got me on the governor's radar. That she had done a lot of fundraisers for a lot of the candidates in 2020, and so when this position it became available to make a change in the leadership, then I was approached to take the job, and I was like, okay, I suppose.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
we do know politics. Politics is the basis of everything, and a lot of people don't understand that you can't make any type of change if you don't look at the politics.
Yeah.
You can we I believe in marching, I believe in holding the banners, I believe in all of that, but then I also believe the next step, you got to get in the politic part of it. You have to.
I completely agree. I mean, I told the story of how I got this job like from 2020, but in terms of how I got into politics, we'd have to go back a little further. Um, I think I've always been politically aware. Like my mom even likes to tell the story how when I was 2, which is at the height of the Watergate trials, right? When I was 2, that I got mad at her one day and I stormed into the living room and sat down. And she's like, "What's wrong?" And I called her the worst word that I knew at the time, and I said, "You're just a government." And she said she had to like leave the room to laugh. So I think I've always been. She also says one time we were like in an IHOP or something when I was 4, and I was staring at the guy behind us, and I'm like, he looks like Gerald Ford. I'm like, what 4-year-old knows who the president is?
Exactly.
So I think I've always been aware of it, and I was a debater in high school. But I always really, you know, my family has been in Wyandotte County for several generations. And so they would always tell stories about what it was like to be Black in the 50s and what it was like to be Black in the 60s during the civil rights era. I've got this great picture of my mom protesting on KU's campus. So I come from a long line of people who were in the fight, in the struggle, and protesters. So I always kind of felt like maybe I was born too late, right? Like, like I was born in the 70s. Um,
Right.
when it actually comes down to it is that when 2016 happened, when the administration changed in 2016, like a lot of people, I kind of was like, this, the world is going in a direction that I don't think I can hang with. And it
Right.
really literally felt like a light switch went on. And I was like, okay, like I heard a voice, like it's your turn. And so kind of like what you're saying, I mean, I spent a good chunk of 2016 and 2017 as a street protester. I mean, I just became an activist and hit the streets,
Okay.
literally laminated my protest sign, right? And I
Okay.
loved it because my mom had made that sign for the Women's March in 2017, and it said, "Our children are watching." And
Okay.
I laminated it and did a lot of marching. But to the point you just made, at some point, I was like, this system is not going to change just from us yelling at it.
Okay. All
And
right.
in late, it was actually probably August of 2019, Brandon Woodard, who's my house rep,
Mm-hmm.
I got a call that Brandon wanted to have coffee. And I remember I was like, oh, does he? Brandon wants to have coffee. Okay, what does Brandon want from me? Because
Right.
I had become a precinct captain, and I'm like, what does he want? And he sat me down. He said, I want you to run for Senate.
Okay.
So I was like, that's interesting that he wants me to run. I said, like, over his head. And I was like, this is crazy. It was crazy. But I think even during that conversation, I knew that I was going to say yes, because I had already heard, years ago, I'd already heard the voice say, it's your turn.
It's your
And
turn.
I already knew that it needed to be a change in the structure, meant we needed to change the people.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I agree with you 100%. So you and I are gonna have a nice, serious conversation. You thought you were talk about, we're gonna talk about you running for office. That's what we're I'm gonna
Hey,
talk you into running for office.
I've been eyeing some spots, so everybody better watch out. I'm watching. I'm watching. I'm trying to see where the weak links are, or where the strong links are. Maybe that's better. Where I can jump in and be a strong advocate.
All right,
So
we're gonna have a serious conversation
okay,
at
let's
some
have
point
that
about that.
conversation.
All right, all
Okay,
right.
all right.
Yeah, so that's it. That's how I got in the race. Was Brandon Woodard asked me into the race, and because I'd been a precinct captain, I could assemble a really strong team out here in Senate 9. And I always refer to the race as we, because I mean, I had a core of like 7 to 9 people who did a lot of work for me. You can't run for Senate by yourself. Like you
Right.
just can't. And
You
so
just can't. Right.
it was definitely a team effort. There was a lot of people who volunteered and helped me out. There was a lot of people who and this was also during the height of the pandemic where there were no vaccines. So it's not like they went door knocking, but we did a lot of
Right.
lit drops, just
Mm-hmm.
putting lit on people's
Mm-hmm.
doors,
Mm-hmm.
and it was and we did really well.
Right. Okay. So team building, advocacy, um, Kansas African Affairs Commission, team building, advocacy. The name itself, African American, African Americans Affairs. We
Yes.
got a lot of affairs that need attention.
Yeah.
We have a
Yes.
lot of things going on. So you talk about 2016, the Women's March. Here in Wichita, I was honored to be one of those early speakers for the Women's March. But and one of the things, even on the Women's March, we have a strong person here in Wichita, Mary Dean. She advocated, yeah, we do need to do the Women's March, but Black women's issues still need to be an issue, right? And
Yes.
so the Kansas African Affairs Commission, talking about things that pertain to African Americans. And so, in my opinion, that's a really high office, right? That position has the ear of the governor, right? And so, and I'm vocal. And so historically, the governor, they're not supposed to like place, fill the position, but ultimately they fill the position, right? And typically it reflects the party of the person in office, you know. In the statute, I didn't read if it even talked about party lines. It probably didn't, but
No, it does. It
it
doesn't talk
does.
about necessarily the party. It doesn't talk about the party lines of any given position, but it
Mm-hmm.
talks about the fact that at any given point, it's at most 4 to 3.
Okay. Okay.
And a lot of that is done by the fact, okay, so the office, the African American Affairs Commission, is one of several what they call external commissions. There's
Mm-hmm.
also the Hispanic and Latino American Affairs Commission, there's
Mhm.
the Disability Concerns Commission, there's the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Commission, and then there's an office. It's not necessarily a commission, but it's a liaison between the Native American tribes because they are considered sovereign governments
Mhm.
and the state of Kansas. And
Mhm.
that person just recently resigned his post, so that position right now is yet unfilled. But in our statute, the people who are appointed to the commission, 3 are appointed by the governor, then one's appointed by the president of the Senate, and then the Senate minority leader. So it would be opposite parties. One's appointed by the Speaker of the House, and then the House minority leader. So at any given time, it's the only this thing in the statute it says that at any given time it has to be like 4-3.
So 4-3 as far as what your board members,
Yes.
your
Right
advisory
now,
board.
and yes, and right now it's 3-3-1. I think it's if I remember correctly, it's we are really balanced in terms of political background.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Okay, that's
Hmm.
good to know. Um, I do believe if everybody at the table thinks the same way, sometimes you don't get things done. Sometimes you do, and you need those opposite voices to help you to do your devil's advocate work.
Yes.
You know, your what abouts and then how about. So I okay, that makes sense.
Yes, and we've had some discussions where it's clear that not everyone is of the same mind about a certain topic, right? So it's not that because black people aren't a monolith.
Right.
Not everyone thinks alike. So
Okay. So not everyone thinks alike, but hopefully all your board members think that some things need to change and we need to see some progress. I hope they all have that mindset.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay. Because and you know we're gonna keep it real here because some of the administrations in the past have not been as active as one would think they would be, right?
right.
Okay, and so you're in this position, you're going on a year, so I think you've probably had an opportunity to get your feet wet and to kind of maybe see what's going on. You said your background. I know you come from teaching and education,
Yes.
and then you jumped into politics. And so again, the advocacy part of it. I know you said you were out protesting, and so across the nation, what 2020 was the summer of protest.
Yeah, it was. Hmm.
We saw, we all knew what was going on, but the whole world got to see it in real time.
Yeah.
And it was, well, not in real time, but we all got to see it, and it was sad. But
Yeah.
it's the story that African Americans have been saying for a really long time, that police brutality is a real thing.
Yes.
It's not made up, it's a real thing, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
We've been saying that when you go to courts, it's rigged, and that's a real thing.
Hmm.
Something happens, you complain, you go to, okay, I'll go to court, and it gets tossed out, right?
Yeah.
That's real. That's real. Um, we know our education system, there's some disparities. Those things are real. So I want you to tell the audience, can you kind of maybe tell them what KAAAC is here for?
Right.
Why do we have KAAAC?
Right. And so it's kind of like a KAAAC history lesson versus, and also like reading the statute. When I first
Right.
got this job, I think I spent a month just reading the statute every day. I read that statute. And the commission functions is supposed to be, as on the statute, we are a liaison between the African American community and the governor's office. When KAAAC was first established back during, I believe it was Bill Graves' administration, so this was a while ago, it was under the Department of Labor. And it was during Danielle Dempsey Swopes was the executive director at the time when it got brought under the governor's office. And interestingly enough, I ran into a woman who at the time was a Native American liaison. And because I had sort of heard the lore that Sebelius brought it into the governor's office. But what she told me was that the commissions lobbied to get taken into the governor's office because being in the Department of Labor, there was too many hurdles, too many steps
Mm-hmm,
to get
mm-hmm,
to the governor because we weren't considered part of the governor's office. We were part of the
mm-hmm.
Department of Labor. And so Daniel Dempsey Swopes, with the background in legal, wrote the statutes to get us into the governor's office. And so that's why we're in the governor's office now. So it functions as a liaison between the community and the governor's office. Now, In the
And
statute,
I'm gonna see if I can bring this up while you're talking. Okay.
right, sure. The statute
Okay.
says that there should be a lot of things in terms of liaison, in terms of the categories, and they are broad. Is it education? Is it jobs? Is it yeah? If you can pull it up, because there's a lot. Is it culture? And I think what I found is that these things are all up to interpretation and as to what they mean and what it should look like. So for me, the other thing, and there have been days I have wished, and I can't control this. There have been days I have wished that one, the main thing I wish that when I got this job, there wasn't a global pandemic going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, my first day was June 1st of 2021. So June 1st, 2021, if you recall, Delta was raging, and we didn't quite have, like, we had vaccines, but it was the early stages of vaccines, really, when it comes
Right.
down to it.
Right.
So honestly, the first 6 months of this job, I was really tasked with helping out with vaccine distribution in the African American community. So spent a lot of time talking with Dr. Jimena Garcia, who is the state sort of, she's over vaccine distribution equity. Quite frankly, in Wichita, Maggie Thompson is a force of nature. And
Yes.
then there's a group called the Black Farmers Association out further west, a woman named Dr. Janella Holmes. And then there's even there's a Core Labs in Johnson County. It's a Black woman who runs that. So just trying to get A to B, I was talking with Janella a few weeks ago, and she was thanking me. She said, because you got me turned on to this grant so that she could get money to really help her system ramp up to provide more vaccines. So she got a grant. She could buy a vehicle and actually do a traveling thing, so then she could partner with getting shots into Black people's arms. Maggie with the Wichita Black nurses, seriously, force of nature. Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Yes.
Like,
Maggie is the real deal. Yes.
he is the real deal. So
Yes.
early on, I was brought into a lot of meetings in terms of advertising, like with KDHE, and I was like, please, someone put this woman on TV, because I mean, every time I talk to her, I'm like, I want another shot. Just give
Right.
me another
Right.
shot. And then like with Core Labs, and then talking with just various people around the state to try to get various people hooked up with, you have nurses, but you need shots, or you have a mobile vaccine. Here's people who are willing to do it. So it was not glamorous work at all.
Mm-hmm.
And there are days, and since we're keeping it real, I will tell you plainly, that is not in the statute.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I don't think there's anything in the statute that says that I should be a community health officer.
Right.
But we
Right.
were in the middle of a global pandemic, quite
Right.
frankly.
So
And go
were
ahead.
you able to get like funding for any of these initiatives?
It's knowing now. Here's the other thing. CAAAC itself is not, like I said, CAAAC is not in the vaccine business. If
Right.
you read the statute, that's not it. But
Right.
there's the statute, and then there's the fact that we were in the middle of a global pandemic, and
Right.
people were dying,
Right.
and Black people needed vaccine shots.
Right.
And that's at that point, when I brought in, they literally were like, we really would like you to focus on trying to raise the vaccine numbers in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Independent of what the statute said, like COVID has been, and before we start talking, you said you want to bring up COVID again. COVID is still a thing, and it has really hit our community hard.
Right.
And there are a lot of reasons, if it's accessibility issues, if it's hesitancy issues, for any number of reasons. Whether I feel like those hesitancy issues are legitimate or not, people are hesitant, right? So I
Right.
can't,
Right.
right? It's the issue of what do I do with that? Apart
Right.
from, so in the beginning of my job, literally 50% of my job was dealing with vaccine distribution, which is not exciting work. It can be often very thankless work. And at the time, then probably another 25% of the job in those first 6 months was, we knew redistricting was coming. We
Right.
knew redistricting was coming. So it
Right.
was building coalitions, trying to figure out who could help with redistricting, and then also getting ready for the legislative session. So once the legislative session came in, I really, and I think, because my background was as a baby politician, and speaking with some of the Black legislators, they had hoped that this office could also help to advocate for some of the legislative pieces that actually had an impact on our community. So, for example, I did do a lot of testimony on redistricting because, as you noticed, that Ad Astra map did a number on Wyandotte County, right?
Oh,
Split Wyandotte
yeah,
County in half.
yes,
And that, I mean, to my mind, that was just a flagrant attack on the Black and brown community that lives in Wyandotte County to split the voting block in half.
yes. And the way that they actually split it, it's not even in half. It's like uh emotion.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
it's
I can't
ugly.
even explain it.
So I did a lot of testimony about the redistricting. I did a lot of testimony on the voting rights bills. There's a lot of voter suppression bills that went through this session. So did a lot of testimony concerning that. So myself and the Hispanic Latino American Commission, Latino Affairs Commission, we actually did a lot of joint letters, especially during the redistricting, because it was Wyandotte County is heavily Hispanic and Black.
Okay.
And so we did a lot of things where we were doing it together. We would sign letters jointly. We would put them out under both letterheads, and we did a lot of testimony with redistricting and the voting, because those are two things that clearly impact our communities. Access to the ballot, since jump, access to the ballot has been a thing for the Black community.
Okay. So, but Kansas did pass a lot of voting measures that really are going to do a number. This is a crucial year for elections. This is our midterms. We got some women's rights issues coming up on the ballot.
Yes.
And so what did KAAAC do? Did you said you advocated against some of those bills, but now that they've been passed, what's the game plan? What can we do to kind of offset? Because I believe if you hand out a bottle of water, you may get a citation, yeah, or you may get arrested.
Yeah.
So what measures is KAAAC going to put out some type of game plan?
Okay, so it's a couple of things. One, during the legislative session, it was I will show up as much and testify as much and submit testimony and do as much as we possibly can. The fact that those measures were not entirely successful has a lot to do with, how did I get this job? We had we need to change people in office, right?
Yes.
Like the makeup of the legislature right now is the makeup of the legislature right now. In terms of what do we do moving forward, honestly, that's part of the reason why I'm here. Like, personally, I'm like, if anyone asks me to show up and talk at their child's birthday party, I show up and talk and say, and I'm glad you brought up the amendment, because that's it. It's like, okay, now it's education advocacy. Like I said, I finally got an intern because it's an office of one. And so we are going to start actually tomorrow doing lunch and learns. So they're only going to be half an hour once a week. And, here's the solid truth is that the social media presence is a social media presence, right? There's only so much I can do.
Right.
But part of it is like, you probably have a broader reach than me. So it's like you said, hey, do you want to come on? Yes, I want to come on. Right. I've talked to K-State's Black Student Union. I've talked to KU's Black Student Union. I've talked to Olathe East's Black Student Union. I did the Delta Sigma Theta day at the Capitol. The AKAs have been in touch with me. Any NAACP chapter that's like, hey, you want to come and talk? Hey, do you want to be on? I'm like, yes, because it's like part of it now is, hey, these things are we couldn't stop enough in the legislature. Now we have to be aware of what's going on and gear towards, quite frankly, I've been telling everyone August 2nd is the next biggest thing, because that's the primary election with the constitutional amendment. The maps, logistically speaking, the maps are out of our hands.
Right. Now, I do know that they're being challenged in courts, which is a good thing. Right.
Well, right now, one is being the congressional map, the one that splits Wyandotte County in half, is being challenged in court. The state House, state Senate, and the state Board of Education maps. So far, I may speak out of turn. To my knowledge, have not been challenged yet. Like no one has sued like people have sued to challenge the congressional map.
Right.
But in Kansas, all the maps are reviewed automatically by the Kansas Supreme Court. So no matter if anyone challenges them or not,
They're
The
going.
maps are all reviewed by the Kansas Supreme Court, which is weird. Not all states have an automatic review of maps.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people who are trying to see if there's any way to. Um, in fact, we had a meeting with stakeholders and we're like, to your question, what do we do? What can we do? Because by all accounts, these things are they're no longer open to public comment,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because the public comment portion was when we all showed up and gave testimony,
Right.
and they
Right.
had those town hall meetings really super quick. So technically speaking, everything has made it through the legislative process.
Right.
They're not. It's not open to public comment,
Right.
like right.
And
So
I did speak out on some of those maps. I think I took a trip to Newton or somewhere.
mhm.
So okay, so they had those type of town halls, and I don't know if you go to the comments section, you can kind of see if we get any comments. But have you had a town hall yet? How are you going to gauge? Because the average citizens, they
Doesn't know
may
CAC
know about
exists,
redistricting and they may not. They
right?
may know about the new voting measures and they may not. But have you, or how are you going to gauge what's really important to African Americans in the state of Kansas? And I
Hmm.
know you have a board of advisors. You have how many? Is it 7?
7,
Okay.
yes,
And they're strategically placed around the state, correct?
in the different congressional districts, correct? Yes.
Okay. All right. So anyway, what is your measuring stick for the African American community? What's on our minds?
So I go back to when I got hired, because when I first got hired, and I'm also going to reference the Hispanic and Latino American Affairs Commission. She's been at the position. Ade's been at the position for about 2 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
and she has a very active board, a very active, just everything's very active, and there's a lot going on. And so I remember very early on, I sat her and we sat down. I said, "Okay, so what are you doing? How are you doing it?" And she told me how she did it, and I was like, all right. And part of that is town halls. And so I literally, one of the first meetings I had with the commission, I said, I want you guys all to look around your neighborhoods. Where can we go to have a town hall meeting? But then you have to remember, this was the height of Delta,
Right.
so there was no travel anywhere. the
Right.
the entire executive branch was sent to work remotely.
Right.
Like, I didn't even report to Topeka until January 1st.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, the official, and, people, you can say what you want, but the official line coming out of the Kelly administration was, we're taking COVID seriously. And if I had that point in the height of Delta, where vaccine hesitancy in the African American community was very high, if I said, I'm going to launch a 15 city tour across Kansas and bring people together, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that would have flown.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so now we're in a position where I sort of have my sea legs, and still, but with COVID is still a thing, and COVID is still unpredictable. Because I remember
Right.
it was Delta, and there was like 3 weeks where we all thought we were going to be okay, and then
Right.
Omicron
And,
happened,
right. And
and
then
then
we weren't.
and
Right.
then we weren't okay. And so
Right.
even like right before we got on, it's like, maybe things are okay, and now numbers are going in the wrong way. So
Right.
here's the way I got around it. We're doing strategic planning. We've hired a woman out of Wichita to do strategic planning. And as much as I would love to go on a tour across the state, I just don't know if that's feasible. What we've started is developing a survey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that can be emailed out, something that can have a QR code that could just be, posted on the website, so that we can gather people's, and then keep everything like in a Google spreadsheet,
Right.
right? That's the way to find out without me actually traveling,
Mm-hmm.
which is still, although, I mean, I've still traveled, like I said, anytime anyone invites me to anything, I say yes. So, like, Martin Luther King Day, I was out in Junction City. I'll be going back to Junction City for Juneteenth. I'll be in Topeka for a Juneteenth thing. I'll be in Johnson County for a Juneteenth thing. So part of it is just sheer getting out there, doing stuff. Other
Right.
things, like, and I know you were on a call with the situation in Wichita with the Cedric Lofton
Yes.
case.
Yeah. So yeah. So how has your office fit into that situation?
Well, interestingly enough, one, it was already on my radar, but
Mm-hmm.
but it's, as the executive director, then there's the commission. But two commissioners approached me independently of each other, and I said, "Did you guys plan this?" And they said no. Two commissioners approached me independently and said, "We want to weigh in on the Cedric Lofton case." And I said, "Okay." So I went to the governor's office and said, "We want to weigh in on the Cedric Lofton case." And they were like, "How are you going to do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. We're going to call a meeting, and I'm going to let people talk about how we're going to do that." And so that's what we did. We called a meeting and came up with, and it wasn't me, right? I was just sort of there to make sure everything was hosted properly and publicly noticed properly and took notes properly, and sort of got everything together. But it was the commissioners who drove that, inviting the community in to come up to the point of writing a letter of support for the local sort of calling for calling for an independent investigation of the Cedric Lofton situation in Wichita.
Right.
So now the question becomes, what's the outcome? To a certain degree, I don't know. Like, for example, we can't sue people as a
Right.
commission, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I can't fire anybody who's in,
Correct.
like, you know what I mean? Like, to a certain degree, like, that is very much a Wichita, you know, I don't have any jurisdiction in Wichita to
Right.
actually do anything. So
Right.
we decided to lend support to the people in Wichita who are fighting that battle.
Right.
Because from where we said,
So we found out one of the things that was an issue was like the stand your ground law. So does your office or can your office submit bills, to maybe fight it? How we say politics is the basis of everything. So maybe now knowing some issues, and some of the senators and elects in Topeka have said that the stand your ground bill was used inaccurately. And so is that something your office can do? Can you draft a bill, or can you work with legislators, or is that even on the radar, or is that something that your office can do? Are you commissioned to enact some legislation?
we can write bills, uh,
Hmm.
mainly because anyone can write a bill. You could write a bill.
Right, right.
Uh, so the simple answer is yes, we could write
Hmm.
bills. The second answer is, well, actually, I'm just gonna leave with the first answer. Yes, we could.
Yes.
And so I think that's something that if we were to look into the next legislative session to try to introduce legislation dealing with the stand your ground. I mean, that's an idea that I'm open to. I'm
Right.
fine with it.
Right. And as far as the town halls, because like you say, COVID hasn't gone away. People are opening up their doors, but have you guys thought about doing them virtually? Um, your commissioners in the districts, have you thought about doing town halls that way?
Hmm.
So that because I'll be honest, a lot of times when you do the QR codes and fill out a survey, unfortunately, and I don't know why, but the African Americans don't tend to do those surveys. We had something going on here in Wichita. We were doing the whole food master plan, and they wanted input. And I don't know if they didn't come to those Black communities, that they didn't do a good job, but we were not represented
Hmm.
in the plan. And so when they came with their food master plan, we still have food deserts, and they have not been addressed. And if you really tackle the Black community, that was the only thing that really mattered to us. We don't really care, and not being mean, we don't really care if farmers in Kansas are selling their beef in Kansas, because we can't even get beef. You know what I'm saying? Because we live in food deserts. We don't care if a farmer in Kansas is able to sell their produce in Kansas, because we can't even get the produce when it's
Hmm.
nice and fresh. So we don't care. We cared about food deserts, and it was not addressed. And so
Right.
I'm thinking, and I know Topeka has an issue. I'm sure Wyandotte has issues with food deserts. And so again, how do we use KAAAC or how can you measure what's really going on in the Black communities and then address the plan? So your town hall meetings is it. I guess that has to be the first line.
Yeah.
And and like I said, you can't travel, but this social media, this works. This
I
works.
mean, yeah. So I mean, the simple answer is you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, like, I can't argue with anything you said. So if it were up to me, if the world was perfect, I would be in person everywhere.
Right.
That would be it. And it
Right.
would be an issue of, since the commissioners are around the state, literally the first meeting we had, I said, start looking around, but COVID kept happening. So we're
Right.
trying to do what we can, right? I'm going to start the lunch and learns on social media. We're going to hope with this QR code thing. Hopefully, I keep hoping that COVID's going to chill enough to the point to get out and do it. I
Hmm.
know I don't know if it sounds like a cop out or not, but I mean, it's something I want to do that's just not been planned out yet because there
Right.
always seems to be something that comes up and happens.
Right. So, like I say, in Wichita, I'd be happy to help maybe host one or something.
I hold you to it. You
We
heard
we
her.
can we can make it happen. We can, because I really think it's important to hear the voice of the people. Um, let's see. Here's a question in our chat. So, how often? So, does KAAAC do like quarterly reports or monthly reports? How do you report to the governor what your office is doing?
I had a meeting with her last week. I told her.
So you guys do verbals.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
how
yeah.
can the African Americans in Kansas, how can we see what's going on and what issues you've tackled? How will we know?
Yes. And this speaks to, like you said, you're going to put up the website. And I was like, the website's a disaster. It is. And this is one of those things as well. And is,
Something you're working on?
I mean, I'm a big girl, and I can either say I can defend myself or not, but I do not have the bandwidth to learn how to code, and I have an intern now, and she's been tasked with two things:
Right.
the lunch and learns and the website, because
Okay.
the website's a disaster. Because even when I got hired for this job, I tried to Google the job and tried to
Right.
Google CAC, and I was
Right.
like, this website's a disaster. So
Right.
there is a way for me to upload stuff. But
Right.
and even talking with Ade at the Hispanic, I said, oh, there's a calendar. And she's like, the calendar is so messed up that she went through. Actually, Ade had gone through and done a lot of updates, and then they updated the whole system, and everything went away.
Okay.
So, I mean,
So
even
so
to
the
me right now, I sound like I'm just giving out
no, so the
expletives,
system is antiquated,
and
and
the
that's
system is antiquated.
it's and that falls back on the government, and not necessarily your office.
Depends on who you ask, because plenty of people want to blame me. But the simple truth is that I'm trying to get. I mean, that's it. I'm like, I hired an intern, and like we
Right.
were talking, like I was to the point where I was like, I'm just gonna flat just 1099 outsource it, because
Mm-hmm.
within the government there's agencies that do a lot of things, and so not surprisingly, for cost sake, they would rather us work with it, right? If I want something printed, there's an in-house printer. If I need something fixed, we have an in-house IT department,
IT person, right?
right? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's in-house, like even when we did our we did a video for Martin Luther King Day, because COVID, we weren't going to do an in-person Martin Luther King Day because of COVID.
Right.
And
Right.
they're like, oh, you know what? The Department of Transportation has a TV studio, because I was going to hire a video agency to come in. And they're like, the Department of Transportation has a TV studio. And I'm like, the Department of Transportation? And
Mhm.
sure enough, so everything was filmed at the Department of Transportation for free. So they would rather everything, sort of, not
Right.
surprisingly, be
Right.
done in house. But I couldn't, like, it was dragging on. It was taking time, and I'm like, I'm just gonna hire
Right.
hire somebody.
And
And
Kenya Cox was in the position before you for 2.5, 3 years. No,
since 2015.
yeah, because she was hired under the Republican administration, and so it's kind of sad that we let that website get to the point where it is outdated. She was the leader. There were a whole commission. There were across the state, and it's kind of sad that you walk into a position and you don't have the right tools, and it's been in that state for years. That's kind of a bad. It's kind of
Yeah,
something that you walk into, and what do you do, right? What do you do?
but if Kenya's like me, like, I ain't gonna throw shade at her for not knowing how to code. Do you know
And
what I mean?
you won't throw shade. I'm not throwing shade at her, but I am throwing shade at the fact that she was in that position for 7 years, and she had the ear of the governor. She had, she was handpicked by the governor at the time, the Republican governor. And that was a time when money was flowing in the Republican Party or whatever. And to me, it's a sad state that the black arm of the government kind of got pushed to the corner.
Well,
Whether it's
all of them did, the black and brown. And the thing about the Brownback administration that we need to remember about what happens with the the Brownback administration is that they did tax cuts. Remember?
yeah,
And they
yeah,
the tax experiment decimated the funding situation, because it's my understanding at one point these offices had staff as well, maybe not like tons of staff, but maybe two or three
yeah,
people,
right.
and everyone lost their staff,
But
which meant that everything fell
right,
to one person. And so
right,
the Kelly administration has righted the budget to the point now that they have a surplus. I mean, the next thing, in terms of what's important that I'm lobbying for is axing the sales food tax, right? Like taking a sales food tax down to zero would help everybody. It's a regressive tax, so people who make the least, it would help them the most.
right,
Um, and
right,
will that happen? So here it always runs up against the makeup of the legislature. It
right,
will all at this point in Kansas, a lot of the things that goes back to our earlier conversation, that I could yell and scream and we could protest and we could have black people in the states of the Capitol every day, and the makeup of that legislature in that building, it will not matter,
right,
because they're just not going to vote that way. So then I'm gonna swing back and say, do you want to run for office?
right,
Because that's the
right,
only way things are really going to
right,
change,
right,
is by changing the people who are in office.
right. But I do believe that the protest at least puts a spotlight on the
Yes.
issue, right? And
Yes.
so yeah, so when the Brownback did his whole trickle down effect,
Which didn't
again,
work.
it didn't work, but everybody in that administration backed him. That was the problem. And black folks, we were like, hey, that doesn't work. It doesn't trickle down to us. Hey, what are you doing? And again, we get the short end of the stick that was already short, right? And so with the budget being, coming back to where it should be, hopefully more money will be put into your program, because African Americans in the state of Kansas, we're in bad shape. We got some issues. I'm looking at our, if you go up to the corner, you can hit comments and you can see
Oh,
the
okay.
comments that are coming in. So,
Oh,
okay, since you're in Wichita, so the question is, again, when will we have a town hall meeting in Wichita? Now, so who's your commissioner? Is it Jonathan McRoy? He's
and
your
then
commissioner here.
Joseph Elmore is also in Wichita.
Uh, you see my pause.
I will. If you said earlier, I'm going to keep on talking. You said earlier that you would be willing to host one.
I,
Give me a day. No Saturdays in June, because I have something every Saturday in June.
right.
Um,
Okay. So maybe I'll get with Jonathan, and I'll get with Mr. Elmore too. Um, and see. Let me see. Yeah, when we can have something, because we it probably would need to be at WSU, I'm
mhm.
sure. Um, so anyway, yeah. So put something in Jonathan's ear and say, okay, it needs to happen. Um,
I see a question that says that if enough people made their presence known in Topeka, the minds would change, especially if the media was televising the protest. Man, I wish that was the case, because to your point, you said you drove out to Newton for one of those redistricting town halls. Those town halls
they were sad.
overwhelmingly, they no, but well, maybe in Newton, but I know the one in Wichita, the one in Johnson County, and one in Wyandotte County were full of people. And
But not us.
well,
Well, in Newton it wasn't us, but that may just been Newton.
but this idea of an overwhelming public outcry on one direction, does it make a difference? And in that case, for example, it didn't, because even when Ad Astra was proposed, there was an overwhelming outcry, and
Right,
of us in Wyandotte
right,
County, right? There's a woman named
right,
Connie Brown Collins who organized a bunch of black and brown people up in Wyandotte County. There were press conferences, there were press releases, there were protests, there was everything. And I,
right,
I mean, I will always go back to, you know, for me, I look at just building this idea of building awareness in the black community of what goes on politically, and having people be involved enough that not just to protest, because protesting is important. Like, I don't want to take anything
Right.
away from protesting,
Right.
but if unless there are enough people actually in positions of power to change something, I don't think things change. Or
Right.
if there were enough black, brown, I'm gonna steal a phrase from Mark Dupree in Wyandotte County. If there were enough black, brown, and broke people who consistently showed up to vote, so that people in office knew that if they didn't listen to these black, brown, and broke people, they might lose their positions of power,
Right.
then it would work. Do you know
Right.
what I
But
mean? Like, the way that we move people who are in power is that they would have some sort of consequence for not listening to us. And
right.
the only consequence that's important is whether or not people get elected or not.
Right.
And if so, I would also say, like, one, run for office, but two, just vote, right? Like,
And,
you have to vote.
but what's missing, what I've seen has been what's missing in Kansas is that the ones in the seats, and you have one of the seats now, they don't they aren't the ones out front. Like, I'm part of lots of organizations, right? But I think I've seen more. I'm part of the League of Women Voters, and they're nonpartisan. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. Their posters are everywhere. Their postcards, their stickers, their labels, they're everywhere. But people that look like us, I don't see us everywhere. I don't see us. I see grassroots people, out there, but I don't see the leadership. I don't see um I want to see more from your office. I'll just put it that way. Since you're here right now, you're in the seat. We need to, if it's the Kansas African American Affairs Commission, your mandate is black people, right? The Hispanics got their own organization.
Yeah.
You're ours. We're black people. So
I'm,
we need, right. So power to the people. So we need you black people to talk to us black people. We need to see on your letterhead what's going on, what's important, the governor sends their stuff out, that's cool, but we want it to come from your letterhead. You talk to us directly, and I think
mhm.
that would have an impact, because right now Governor Kelly, she done lost some brownie points with black people,
Yeah.
just point blank. But hopefully not to the point where she won't win. I hope she, come on, black people, y'all got to vote for her.
We
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
vote. So here's, and I'm gonna say we had to vote because my office won. The office is a nonpartisan office, so I will tell you need to vote, and I will not tell you who you need to vote for, because if I tell you who I need to vote for, then I'm lobbying. I'm right.
I'm gonna interject. Although your office is supposed to be nonpartisan, our governors have not been nonpartisan.
I
They
understand.
have.
So here's the thing, and I agree with you that I've told people, look, I'm just everything. I'm like Issa Rae. I'm rooting for everybody black.
I'm just voting black. Yeah.
Right. If you're helping the black people, I will talk to you. If you're not helping black people, then that's just the situation we're in, where you're not helping
And
black
to
people.
be honest, anything like you see on the sales tax, anything that helps black people, it helps everybody, because
It
we're
does.
the lowest on the totem pole. So it helps everybody, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I'm gonna stick to your nonpartisan. Just vote, people. Just
Yeah, we
vote
have
in
to
your
vote.
best interest. And we got to tell them what's their best interest. Sometimes people don't know. They think that, well, our current administration didn't do jack, so I'm gonna vote on this side, but then they don't know the issues that are at stake. And
Right.
so we need your offices like yours, to kind of outline it for us what's important.
Again, I hope to start the lunch and learn start tomorrow, and it's gonna,
It starts.
they're short. It's
Okay.
short.
So even with those, I didn't know. And I perused your website. I must have
Oh,
overlooked it.
please, the
I didn't.
website. Listen,
So go
the
to your
website
face.
is horrible.
So it's the Facebook page where we should go. Is
Yes,
that where all the
the
current information is?
website is a disaster. Anyone who's ever asked
Okay.
me, I'm like, the website. If you notice, the website makes no mention of me.
Okay. So the
Okay,
Facebook page. So go to Facebook. Are you on Instagram? Are you on, where else can we
Facebook and
find you?
Twitter. Facebook and Twitter. And I
Facebook and
send out,
Twitter.
and I send out emails. And it's interesting because I know there's criticism. There's been a lot of criticism levied at this office. And I will willingly admit, quite frankly, most of the criticism that's been levied at this office, I have agreed with, right? I'm not going to sit here and try to defend the mistakes that have been made with this office.
Right.
The website is a disaster. I have an
Okay.
intern.
Okay.
We'll get it figured out. And I think there's been, there's no communication. And I'm like, I've sent out 2 emails in the past 2 weeks,
Right. And I'm not,
right?
and
And
I
so
don't know
and so
why that
sometimes
was.
I think when I send out these emails, maybe I just need to put newsletter at the top and change so that people go, oh, it's because I've been steady sending out stuff, and
So
people are
who's
like, I
on
never
your
hear from you, and I'm like,
who get,
I've been
who's
emailing.
on your list? How do people get on the list to get an email from you?
Now I do know if you go to the website, like if you go to the website and put your email in, it'll go to the listserv. It's just
Okay.
that it needs to be updated,
Okay.
right? And
So in order to get on the list, go to the website and insert your email, and that will
yes,
kick you out. Okay.
let me see.
You'll
If I
put
go to
that
the
in.
website, find out.
Okay. Because like I say, how do new people get on the list? And I saw
So
something
if you
in
go
here.
to the first page, like just when you go to KAAAC.gov, right, and you scroll down a little bit, and it says "Stay informed, sign up for the," and then there's a little thing that says "Subscribe to the mailing list."
Okay.
It's on the front. It's on the front first page.
I'm putting that in our deal right now.
Yeah, there's been plenty. There's been plenty of criticism lobbed at this commission. Most of, again, I don't know how many times I've said it. I feel like I get tired. I have agreed with much of the criticism that has been lobbied against this commission.
Okay.
I
So
completely understand it, and I think there's a lot of work that can be done.
so
I
so
would
you
love to be doing town hall meetings, and everyone heard her say that she would host one at WSU. You
oh,
pick a date,
maybe
Mandy.
at WSU. We need a place like WSU that's big enough where people will feel comfortable, where they won't feel like they'll get COVID.
I know my Saturdays in June are booked up with various Juneteenth events. If you could find like some, I will come. I will gladly show up. I have taken every speaking engagement invitation that has come my way. And I think, it's just,
Well, let me ask you this. So you did say that the budget has kind of stabilized and the state does have more money. Do you need your African American constituents to email Governor Kelly for more funding? I mean, do you need something from us? Because if communication is key to everything, we
yes,
want we want these town halls. We want to see the update, the quarterly news, and if you don't have the right tools, it's
yes.
a disservice to you.
I will, if, you know what, if that is what it takes to get Black people to get involved in politics, yes, do it.
Okay.
If everybody who thinks that I am underfunded wants to send an email to constituent services, because they track everything, right? Let me go out to constituent service and see if I can get that, because it's funny. We talked about, like, we'll just let the conversation go, but so I was not prepared with any links to any,
Right. Right.
right. Like,
And you can always come back in there and put the link. But
right,
if you can maybe the ones that are already on your email list, maybe you could
yeah,
email, and I don't think I'm a subscribe. Maybe email us and say, well, because of funding, I can't do this, that, and the other. And so we would know what kind of funding the
right.
department needs.
So it's interesting. Some days because, okay, I saw a meme recently, or I think it was something like that, and it said the worst thing I've done for my mental health is get a better understanding of how politics works.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I feel that in my bones. So
Yeah.
yes, the simple answer is, if everyone listening to my voice is like, oh my gosh, she's underfunded, and you want to write a letter to Governor Kelly and demand that I'm funded more, do it. I'm
Okay.
not going to stop you, because that means you're paying attention and you're getting involved and you're letting your voice be heard.
Okay.
And that's what I want Black people to do. I want Black people to show up. The big ones were redistricting, and the big ones were voting rights. But I testified on, there was a Senate bill that dealt with Black maternal health, right? There was a woman who was trying to write a bill. out of KU Med Center to have KDHE track Black maternal health. I'm a Black woman and I gave birth in the state of Kansas, and I showed up to testify about that, right? That one
Right.
didn't get out of committee because there's people who don't want it out of committee. Like, you got to change people who are in office.
Right.
The Crown Act, you would like to think everyone's like, well, that passed nationally. Well, it hasn't passed locally, and I showed up to testify like that. Me with my Black self and my twists going on. I showed up and testified about that because I know these things are important to our community. Guess what? That didn't get out of committee. You know why? Because there are people in committee who don't want it out of committee. So we can yell, we can scream. Please write letters to write a letter to the governor and demand that I have more funding. I appreciate yes, please do that. I will get you the email. But the bottom line is we need a vote, because if you want different people in office who will get, Black maternal health issues passed, if you want different people in office who will get the Crown Act passed, if you want different, I had a conversation with the senator about the payday lending loan situation, right? Talk to her about it. These things are decimating our communities, blah, blah, blah. First words out of her mouth were, do you have a lobbyist? I'm like, why do I need a lobbyist? I'm here, right?
You are the lobbyist.
Right?
Right.
But she's like the payday lending people have 7 lobbyists in the building.
Mm-hmm.
So if we as Black people, and let's have this conversation, if we as Black people want things to change for us as Black people, y'all can't just be sitting here looking at me like I have that somehow the sun rises and sets in my behind to be able to make some change. Y'all need to petition the government, right? Because every 4 years or every election cycle, they all tramps out and show up in our communities and say, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. But guess what? It's a two-way conversation. And if you want something, it can't just be me. It can't just be me. It's got to be all of us, right?
Right.
It's got to be all of us.
All of us, right. And so, and since you're there in Topeka, like, the things that are coming across the table. I guess if people come to you, you get wind of what's going on. Senator Aletha Faust has been trying to keep us informed, but like she said, she can't do it all herself either. Representative Gail Finney had her medical issues, but typically she does her best. But we need more voices to let us know what's on the table, because we don't always know, we don't always know what's going on. But before we get off, I'm going to go over the goals and objectives of the KAAAC. And so I just want you to just kind of let us know, because there was a question: if you get the funding, what will it do? Okay. So this real quick. Gather and disseminate information on legislation and public policy issues of concerns in the African American community. So we talked about, you already said, you got to do your town halls, it's coming. But then we just talked about some legislation that went through that would have impacted us, but we didn't know about it. And so again, how are you going to tackle that? I'm doing all the talking. How would you tackle that?
Yeah.
Or how happy? It gets back to, we already talked about that one.
Part of it is like, I don't know what the magic. I mean, I think I know what people want to see. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I haven't done that means that people haven't seen what I've done.
Exactly. And that's it.
Right? And so, and that's it. Because there is on the website, there is, and it's old. It's like, it's probably 8 years old right now. Oop, my light turned off. There was like and it's flashy and it's colorful. And I think people want to see that. They're like, and unless she does this, because if you go to this state's African American Commission and you look at their page, and if you go to this state and they send out this kind of notification, and unless I do what specific people want to see, like no matter what I do, it's like they don't see it. Like, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Gail Finney had a piece of legislation that was going to go through. And here's the other thing: is that sometimes the way the sausage gets made, they didn't give a lot of notice.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that happens. We would find out 50 hours ahead of a meeting, and the testimony was due 48 hours out.
Yep.
So Gail Finney had a piece of legislation that had to deal with the Kansas Sea Post. All right. Now, you don't have to hold a town hall meeting to know that the training of police officers in Kansas is important to Black people. Right. I don't go on a limb.
Right.
And not having a town hall meeting, I'm going to say, I bet you the training of police officers is important to people in Kansas.
Right.
Kansas, especially the Black people in Kansas, because I'm Black and it's important to me. And so I was on the Kansas legislation website looking for something else. I think I was trying to look up another bill, and I saw NAACP like out of the corner of my eye, and I said, "What's that?" And I clicked on the bill, read the bill, because they were changing the number of people who were going to be on the Kansas Seapost Commission, adding 3 additional members, and that those people were going to be appointed by someone, not the governor.
Mm-hmm.
This bill, as I'm reading it, I remember, hang on, it may have been a Sunday afternoon, right? It may
Mm-hmm.
have been, I mean, it was, and the hearing was going to happen on Wednesday, which meant that testimony needed to be in.
Right.
Like, oh, hearing was happening on Tuesday, and no, okay, let me get it right. The hearing was happening on Thursday, and testimony needed to be in on Tuesday. I found out about the bill like on maybe Friday, and so I remember doing this. First of all, I like copy pasted and blasted it out to email. Now, of course, that wasn't a nice, pretty newsletter, but I emailed it out to everybody and said, I have just now become aware of this bill, right? I don't know what's going on. All I know is it says that a hearing is at such and such on this a day. And I said, just write the testimony. I'm like, just write it. Just write testimony and send it. Here's the email. Send in the testimony, please. I put it as many ways as I could. And then started calling like who, what's like trying to find out what's going on with the bill. Now, here's the thing. Gail, Miss Finney was going through her procedure. So she was not there.
Right.
So I didn't even know. And you know what? Maybe I'm a bad person. I was not going to call her.
Right. I mean, it was pretty serious. Right.
I'm sorry. Can you just like, just for a few minutes? That's about your bill. Like I wasn't going to call her.
Right.
I did what I could and sent out, like Daniel Dempsey Swopes, Glenda Overstreet Vaughn. Like the thing about my office is that I don't put out TV commercials. What I do is I call people in the community. Spread this, right? Like I will shout it from the email, but then it's like contacting people. Do you know about this? Do you know about this? Do you know about this? So to try to activate the web as fast as I can to get people to submit testimony. And that was one of those Thursdays that it snowed. So then what happened is that I come to find out that the hearing is canceled. And I thought maybe the hearing was canceled because it snowed, right? It was the day there was a blizzard coming through on Thursday. And
it did get canceled.
It got canceled. Yeah, but then so what I did is I went over, tried to find the committee head to ask why it got canceled. And the thing is that these things, things happen that are just beyond my control.
Right. And you know what? And I don't think it's a matter of what you haven't done. I think it's really important for us to know what you have done. I think that goes a really long way, honestly. And now that you're telling us, go to Facebook, not the website right now, go to Facebook. And that's where we can stay update on what's going on with KAAAC. Correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But
listen,
you're working
I am doing my darndest to answer questions.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So maybe it's not a matter of what you haven't done. Maybe it's like, this is what I've done, y'all. And that would go a long way. So let me go back. Let me go to the objectives. And a lot of them is communications. And so we've kind of talked about it, but communicate the public policy concerns of African Americans to the officials and business leaders. So that came up. Does Governor Kelly, does the governor dictate what you do, or do you tell the governor what the people want? How does that relationship work?
It's an interesting little dance because, quite frankly, like, for example, with the Cedric Lofton case, it's the commissioners. The commissioners came to me and said, we want to get involved. And I said, okay.
So the commissioners actually have a lot of weight as well.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things. Like, for example, one thing that
because I'll say this, I've been knowing Joseph Elmore forever, and I know he's been on KAAAC forever. I've never gotten anything from Joseph Elmore, and he knows me. He's never said, LaWanda, this is going on. Never. I know Jonathan is new and he and I have talked, but your messenger, I've never, ever. So
here's the thing. It's an interesting little dance, and I'm not sure I figured it out. And let me try to answer the question since people don't think I am.
Okay.
Part of it is that the commissioners may say, hey, we want to get involved in Cedric Lofton. And I said, okay, and did everything to set it up so they could get involved with Cedric Lofton. I told him, I said, listen, here, let me just be as transparent, as honest as I can. Not that it matters. I
Oh,
said,
it
quite
matters.
frankly,
It
if
matters.
we put something out, the governor's office may have veto power because we are still a part of the governor's office. They gave me a draft of the letter. I submitted it to the governor's office. There was only one thing they wanted to change. I asked, why do you want to change it? They gave me a reason. And I said, I'm not sure that's a good enough reason. And we put out the letter exactly the way the commission wanted it. So that's something where the commissioner said something to me, and we did it. Now, maybe I should have screamed louder about that. Then, like, for example, Juneteenth. I'm not sure if I should open this can of worms, but Juneteenth is not going to be a state holiday. I have heard from people in the community, like, and if someone from the community has found me, like, they're working hard. So, but there have been a couple of people who've said, "Hey, we want Juneteenth to be a state holiday," and so I kind of first thing I did was talk to the chief of staff, and they're like, "I don't know," but I kept hearing from people, and so that, like I said, I had a meeting last week, and so I said, "Listen, honestly, I know what her answer is going to be, but I'm like, to her face, I said, I have heard from enough people who say they want Juneteenth to be a state holiday that I really think we need to open up some sort of dialogue. Because when you get a meeting with the governor, you don't just, I just want a meeting with the governor. Like, there's forms, like, and I have to fill out the exact same forms everyone else does.
Okay.
So I filled out all the forms and got a meeting with the governor and said, here's what I suggest you should do. Option 1. Here's my suggestion for option 2. She liked both options, and so option 1 is making a video about something, and option 2 is getting some people together to talk about it. And I pulled somebody from Johnson County, I pulled somebody from Wichita, I pulled somebody from Topeka, and we're going to have a meeting. And one of the commissioners is going to be there. Now, do I invite 20 people to that meeting? No. Right?
Right.
And so, I mean, now this is not okay. Yeah, okay. There are a lot of national holidays. Like, for example, Valentine's Day is a national holiday, and it's not a state holiday. And the way the situation is set up right now, there are we in the budget have so many state holidays, and so if we add a state holiday, another one has to go. So please, if honestly, here you go. If you want Juneteenth to be a state holiday, I am already working that lever. Please contact constituent services and let your voice be heard.
Okay.
I have already said, you know what I mean? I hope I'm answering the question.
Yes,
I have already taken the topic of Juneteenth as a state holiday directly to the governor, to her face. But maybe it would be helpful if everyone who's complaining that I'm not doing enough contacts constituent services and says, we want Juneteenth to be a state holiday, because then she will have heard from the people.
Maybe I should have led with that question, because how do you get the meeting with the governor? You just said you don't just walk in her office. It's a process. Probably should have led with that one. Like, how do you get a meeting with the governor? So it's a process. It's not just an open door.
No, a simple answer: she's not always there.
Okay.
And there's security.
All right.
But so, like, with this, the Juneteenth thing, I was like, all right, it's a decision memo. So I provide background. I say who's going to be at the meeting. This is the situation. And I said, I've had constituents contact me, and one of the commissioners brought it up to me. Here's one thing. If any commissioner has said to me, hey, I think we have done what the commissioner has said. Hey, I think we should. Whether it's, hey, I think we should get involved with Cedric Lofton, or hey, I think we should get involved with the Juneteenth situation. Any commissioner who has said, hey, I think we should, we have done it. Right? Okay. There's been a lot that's been me saying, hey, I think we should, and I'm by myself, so I do it. But so yes, if again, because this is supposed to be a dialogue. Right. The people are allowed to petition the government, right? Constituent services. There's an entire office that does nothing but answer phones from constituents, and they track it. Like, the first couple constituents, I got it from constituent services. They forwarded it to me. They're like, people are talking about Juneteenth. We forward it to me.
Okay. All right.
So there's a whole office that does nothing but answer the phone and answer email from constituents.
Okay. So that's again, good to know, right? I think I'm used to calling. I'm like, Senator Faust, this is what's going on, Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking at the goals and objectives. A lot of it is really about communicating the needs of the people back to the government level, collaborations. That's really what your goals and objectives kind of really talk about, most of them, if you just look at them.
Mhm. Is this the
Create.
question I'm being accused of not answering? Will CAAC be present at the national press conference pertaining to Cedric Lofton? This is the first I've heard about a national press conference pertaining to Cedric Lofton. So it's difficult for me to say yes or no because I didn't know
Right.
there was one.
Right. And so I think what we're getting out of this, and the goal wasn't to attack you or anything. The
Mm-hmm.
goal is just that this position has been in place for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, I'm part of the we feel like we haven't been getting out of the commission what we expected, whatever that looks like,
Right.
and I'm sure everybody has a different perspective, but overall we haven't been getting from that office what we think we should be getting.
Can I type into the comments? Can someone,
Uh-huh.
or can you put my email address, stacy.knoell@ks.gov?
Right.
So if Miss Mary Dean can just give me all the information about this press conference, I'm not making any promises because I don't know. This literally is the first I've heard about it.
I think you can type in there, or I'll do it after the fact. I'll put
Where
your
do I
email.
type?
Or at
I
the
mean, I
very
see
bottom, does it allow you to answer at the very bottom, or just me? Give me your email. Stacey
dot KNOELL at ks.gov.
So, and I think this is why we needed to have this meeting, um, to get a understanding. So how do we contact you? How do we get on the mailing list? We understand now that the website page is outdated because of the technology involved. We know you need more funding. You're reaching out for more funding, or you're trying to work it internally. So the IT department, whatever, but you're trying to figure that out. But in the meantime, go to Facebook or Twitter. Probably Facebook is probably the best way
Facebook's
to.
hard better. Twitter is,
I know Twitter's. Don't you get like X amount of characters? I don't know. So
yes.
anyway, Facebook is probably the best way to keep up with the office right now.
And I do send out emails. Like
Right,
the
and
crazy
that and
thing
we
is,
put in
even
there.
Senator Falscado was like, I see the stuff from the Kansas Hispanic, and I'm like I even went in, like I went into the listserv. I'm like, why is it people say they're not seeing stuff from me when I'm sending stuff? People are like, I
Right,
don't see it. I'm like,
and
I
I'll
don't know.
and I'll be honest. I don't think I'm on the list, but I'm gonna go in tonight and make sure I'm on the list. And
Okay,
so that's, again, we got some good information how to get on the list. We now know how to get on the list. So I'll share that as well, and maybe again on your Facebook. You want to get on our mailing list, just something so we can do that. Um,
right. Well,
Town halls. You see,
right.
that's important, across the. So when you do the town halls, will all the commissioners, are they supposed to be present, or is
I
it just your jurisdiction?
my guess it would be their jurisdiction. I know that's probably not going to be what some people want to hear, but I'm not going to ask the man who lives in Salina to drive to Wyandotte County when we have people who live in Wyandotte County.
Okay. So,
And
but
I
if
suppose
we.
I mean that's going to be, I'm sure people are not going to like that answer.
Right. So then that just means the commissioners, they obviously talk to each other, and they okay, this is what's going on in this part, this is what's going on in this part, this is everything that's collective.
Right.
We're hearing the same thing.
So
I don't know how it works.
so here's I know we're at like a minute
I
13.
know we're over. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I think if there's anything I really want to say very clearly, okay, is that we as Black people need to understand that all of our voices are important. I will do everything I can. If something, like I said, anytime a commissioner has said, hey, I think we need to, I have done it. If enough people reach me, constituents, and say, hey, I think we need to, I will do it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If y'all are sitting here waiting for me to be the magic bullet, y'all are selling yourselves short. Okay? Contact constituent services and everyone make their case. I am not the savior of Black people in Kansas. We have a voice. All of us have a voice. We need to vote All right. We didn't even talk about, yes, there's a constitutional amendment coming up on August 2nd, and it's a primary election. And primary elections notoriously have low voter turnout, which is why they put this on the primary election.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
And they know that Black people don't show up to vote for primaries. They know half the time we don't show up to vote for generals. They know this. They know it. Now I could put out 18 newsletters. I could have 18 town hall meetings, and I could have 18 meetings with the governor about the constitutional amendment. Guess what? It won't change. I only have one vote.
Right.
Everyone needs to vote,
Right.
right?
Right.
Right? That's the
Everybody needs to
situation.
vote. Right.
Everyone needs to vote. We need to know what's on the ballot. We need to show up. We need to vote. We need to get our friends to vote. We need to pay attention. And then some of us, honestly, some of us need to step up and get involved in politics in a way that will make lasting, meaningful change.
Right.
Because ultimately, when it comes down to lobbying or petitioning the government on anything, I am no more powerful than anyone who's watching this right now, because I did show up to testify on the maps and the voting rights and the maternal health and all this stuff. I did. I showed up and testified on all of that stuff. I can have a meeting with the governor and say, this is what I think about Juneteenth. I am still just one voice. And even if my voice said that I'd heard from 85 people, 10,000 people, whatever, it would be much more powerful if any of these people heard from those 10,000 voices.
Right. Right. But
Everyone hearing my voice right now is just as powerful as I am, because
right.
we can vote and we can petition the government just the same.
Right. Right. But you are in that seat though.
Oh, listen, I'm in the seat. I'll claim it.
Right. Right. And so and one of the things that, and I'm just talking out loud, and you and I need to have another conversation. So even like the constitutional amendment on, if you don't know how to read it right, you're going to vote the wrong way. You're not going to vote the way you may think you want to vote on either side of the issue. And so it needs to be broke down and say, this is what a yes really means, and this is what a no really, because it's backwards.
It is. And the thing is that and I even read, and I even started sending emails out. I'm like, who writes the language on the ballot? How can we get to who writes the language on the ballot?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know who writes the language on the ballot. Nor do I know, and I'm trying to figure out is there a way to change, because there's going to be a ballot explainer that goes on there. And I agree. I think the wording is misleading. I think at best the wording is misleading. So part of it is, how do you tell some? No, I can't see.
Right. You can't
I
tell people
can't
how to
tell
vote.
you how to
Right.
vote.
Right. But you can break it down.
Right.
This is what a yes means this and no means this, even though it's opposite. But people need, and so I think again, like people look to the leadership of NAACP, to have the answers. People look to these leaderships that says African in it or Black in it, and we just naturally look to those positions to help us guide through the process. It's a lot going on in Topeka. It's an awful lot. I try to get on there. It's a lot. One of the things that Senator Faust, she and I have been talking about getting a lobbyist for Black people stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And we kind of think that's you right now. You have 7. Listen, you have the seat, but you have 7 commissioners, and I'm just talking. And Jonathan Knoll, he knows I love him. He knows I do. He knows I love him. But maybe the commissioners could be a little bit more active in their jurisdictions. I don't know. That's an internal conversation for you guys. I think all Black organizations are under the microscope right now, because it's a lot going on with us. You ran for office, you ran for a reason. You know all this stuff. And so, and again, I think it's maybe not what you haven't been doing. And it's the same thing with the NAACP. Tell us what you have been doing, because we don't always know. We just don't always know. And so that helps us a lot to, okay, well, they did do this. I didn't know there was a measure in Topeka about Black women's health and babies. We know our maternal rates I mean, some of us, and everybody doesn't know, black babies die at a much higher rate than
Black
any other
moms too.
age.
And what's crazy, I mean, when the Kansas City Star put it out, and then that means it goes out in the Wichita Eagle, and it actually made it to Yahoo. Surprisingly enough, I mean, believe it or not, the quote in the headline was my quote, and the picture was me. So sometimes I'm like,
Hmm.
I mean, like it was out there, and it
Right.
was my picture that was
Right.
leading that whole article when I didn't submit the bill, and I
Right.
wasn't the expert testimony. But I'm
Right.
like, so if anyone's half paying attention, like someone actually called me from California, someone in a birthing situation organization. I can't remember it, but she was California, and she called
Right.
me to ask me about it, and I was like,
Right.
how did you even know? And she's like, it's on Yahoo.
Right.
On Yahoo.com picked it up, and
Right.
because the quote in the title was me talking, and it was my picture that went out as the picture. So
Hmm.
I'm part of me is like, I don't know, y'all read the Star.
Right. And we don't. I don't read the Star. We don't. We on this side of town. But again, those are things that we need to know.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's awesome. And maybe it's on your Facebook page. Hopefully, you link that article on your Facebook page. I don't know. I'm
Listen,
gonna do that.
yeah,
Like I was looking to the website, and
the
I'm
website the
educated.
website is bad.
Don't go there.
The
Right. Don't
website's
do the
bad.
Facebook.
I can't even. I'm not even gonna try to defend the
Right.
website.
I know we already did that. The Facebook, the website page is outdated. Right. And you're
Outdated.
working on it, but you're
I'm
working
working on
on
it.
it.
So I mean, my closing plea is to get involved and to petition the government specifically, right? Petition the you know what? Because I was involved with the advertising that went out for COVID vaccine. I would and we asked like, and I like, where do you get your news?
Right. You know, you have.
Because I mean, and there's so many topics, right? There's so many
I
topics.
know.
If
This is
it's
this is
COVID,
this is interview number one.
if it's COVID vaccine distribution, or quite frankly, if it's economic development within the Black community, because I've had conversations with David Tolan, and he's like, "Listen, we don't know. We have to find Black people to give money to for economic development." And he's like, "We put information out all the time, but when we look at who's applying, it's not Black people." And he's like, he's asking me, he's like, where do we go to find the Black people?
We can find Wichita. We can get you some people that need some money. We got somebody here right now, Ashley Faust. I'm gonna shout her out. She's trying to open a grocery store, 13th and Oliver, in the food desert,
Send me
right in
information.
Wichita. She can't. So far, the city of Wichita has not helped her financially. Cedric County has not helped her financially. She went to there was a program at I believe K State got money, federal money
Mhm.
or something. She can't get any funding. She's coming out of pocket, credit cards, whatever, whatever. How do we get? I would love to know how to get money there. And if you are the resource, again,
Send me the information. Send me the information. But there is a huge disconnect, and this like the state knows it, and a lot of people at the state level are like, we put out all this on from, and it's the same thing where I'm going from. Like I feel like I'm putting out a lot of information, and Black
right,
people are like, we don't know what you're doing, and
right,
I'm like,
right. And I know
well,
Ashley.
tell me
Right.
what is the news source for Black people? Because if that's the
Look,
issue,
everything. It can't be a one-stop shop. We
but the
got the
thing,
we got the Wichita Community Voice, but it works and it doesn't work. We got the
right? I mean,
Eagle.
that's the thing.
Right,
Like these things, everything's got to go two ways. Everything's got to go two ways.
right, right. Okay, Maurice Evans is on here, and he's like, if there's funding again, and I think we found that out. I don't know if you were here in time for the Wichita Black Coalition. Were you here? Well, yeah, you were here.
I wasn't in
I
town for
don't
the
know. I don't know
election.
if you. I mean, if you're in your position yet, because that's actually how Maggie kind of got her footing from the Black Coalition. So we kind of have formed a Black Coalition here in Wichita, and they found out, marketing for us is not a one stop shop. I was actually on their PR team. They hit up um, podcasters and influencers, and and you got to spread it out because there is no one-stop shop for Black people, unfortunately. It just doesn't work that way. The community voice is, yeah, it's out there. Wichita Eagle, you got to pay to get the newspaper, so you know. The community voice is free though. That's a good one. Influencers, your commissioners, they should know the influencers in their districts, and maybe that's another way. But now we know your Facebook is out there, right? And we know to go there. So I think this conversation has been very helpful. I hope you don't feel beat up. uh,
No, in fact, hand me on again. Hand me on again.
I am, because we just touched the surface. We did. We just literally just touched the surface. And again, and I'm coming from that place too of, I belong to a historical Black organization, and I get it all the time that y'all not doing nothing, right? You're not doing nothing, and so I know what it feels like to not do anything, or to maybe do something and it's not seen, or to not do anything. And so I just think that our historical Black organization, I personally feel we can do better, honestly. I know you had some barriers. You walked into some stuff, as you've probably figured out. You walked into it. You
Yeah.
didn't build it. You didn't build it, but we can fix it though. I think we can fix it. I think all of us working together, we can fix it. I'm
Mhm.
confident. I'm a Pollyanna. I don't know if you could tell. I'm Pollyanna. I believe in everything. There's a light at the end of the tunnel on everything. I believe that, but we gotta, like I say, work together, right?
Everybody who's an activist is ultimate. We're all really closet optimists because
I
otherwise we
know.
wouldn't do this work.
Right, right, right. And
we all
so,
think we all think, okay, if I keep doing this work, it'll actually something will happen good at the end.
right,
So I mean, like I said, I mean, I've watched the criticism go through the chat. None of these things are new to me, and quite frankly, let me say it again. I would agree. 89% of the criticisms that have been levied against me or CAC, I would honestly agree with, and I've been doing what I can to change them.
right,
Part of it is money. Please contact constituent services and say that we need to have more money. Right? Everyone I know says that we need to have more money.
right. So
That's
if you,
fine, but I don't control my budget, if that makes any sense. So,
right,
we'll see how that goes. I will tell you, please vote. I mean, like my parting words are going to be, you have to vote, and that this is a conversation, because the criticism is there, and it's true that politicians will show up in our community, and because it's an election year, and say, "Oh, we'll do this for you, we'll do that for you," and we believe them or we don't. We
right,
vote for them or we don't, and then they disappear. So if
right.
they are elected, if you are sitting in a district where your elected representative is not doing what you think they elected them to do, don't blame me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not your elected representative.
Right, right,
Petition them.
right.
Honestly, if you're mad at Governor Kelly about Juneteenth, contact constituent services. They track it.
Mm-hmm.
That department does have, well, they have a person, but she does have like 3 interns, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
They track it. And if it gets enough traction, they send it to me. And if it
Okay.
gets enough track, then I collect all the emails, and
Mm-hmm.
then I send it to the governor, right? Which is why I was in face to face with the governor saying we need to have a conversation about Juneteenth. Not
Okay.
because I even know what she's going to do, because I do not know what she's going to do.
Right.
I
And
don't.
and Juneteenth, we've been celebrating it anyway. Quite personally, I'd rather you use your influence on stand your ground. I mean, but that's just me. That's just me. So anyway, I think it's been a good first conversation. I
Yes.
think we've tackled some of the issues. There's so much is we can't even get through it in one setting.
And
So
my feelings are not hurt. I love this. I'm an Enneagram 8. I like to wrestle and tussle and get into it. So I'm like, this has made my week, quite
right,
frankly.
okay, and you're in the Wichita market, and so we're going to say this has not been your town hall, but this has been like a mini introduction. How about
Sure.
that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I'll
I
take it.
would I would get with Jonathan, and you said you will too, and let's see let's make something happen in Wichita. Let's get this
Let's.
town hall, because this is the biggest city in the state of Kansas. But you got your Wyandotte. Man, I just hate the way that map is going in Wyandotte. It just, but anyway, there's a lot going on. The measure in August is coming up, and so I just hope that your office can talk Black people talk. Break it down so we can understand the things that's going on. And I think that's what I've been seeing in the comments. It's, we need the faces to talk Black people talk so we can understand it. So anyway, thank you for coming on,
Thanks for
Stacey.
having me. This was a
Nail it.
blast. Yes. Yeah. And seriously, I'll come on anytime you invite me. I'll be here. Shoot, I'll be here every week. Just like
All right. Well, thank you. And to the audience out there, again, thank you for sharing your hour and a half with us. We went way over. The ones that are coming on, and please like and share this video. Let's get KAAAC's name out there more. Let's let people know that the office has changed faces and we can help to make that office better. But at the end of the day, y'all, we got to use our power to activate us, right?
yes.
So, all right. So everybody, thank you for coming on to think about it. And like I always tell you, this is the show that's guaranteed that at the end of the hour, you will have something to think about. Bye.